This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for joining. Today we have a topic from Meta. Will be presented by Harshit for support for reading RX frequency offset, PPM, RX, SNR, and FEC corrected bits with SAI. Okay, Harshit, go ahead. You can start.
All right, thank you. Hi, all. Today we are presenting this PR, which is regarding adding of three generic 5-layer diagnostics, which we think will be useful for debugging link down or general layer 1 issues in the network. So this is in the same spirit as some of the other 5 diagnostics that already exist inside today. For example, I margins, signal detect, log status, corrected code words counter, and so on. So the first diagnostics that we want to add is RX frequency offset PPM, which is a per lane attribute, a per series lane attribute, and that represents the amount of compensation that the receiver has to make in order to adjust for clock differences. The second is RX SNR, the signal to noise ratio, which is again a per lane attribute and represents the signal to noise ratio on that lane. This is generally a floating point value, but however, here I represented them as a U16 in units of 1 over 256 dB. And this is similar to how the transceiver management standards like SFF and CMIS represent them. That's why I just wanted to make that consistent. The third is the FEC corrected bits counter, which is the amount of bits, the number of bits that are corrected by the forward error correction block. Today in SAI, we have corrected code words counter, corrected symbols counter, which provide an approximation of the bit error rate on the link, but not the accurate representation. So the NAS could use this counter to get a accurate BER within an interval. So that's the summary of the three diagnostics that we're planning to add. Let me now walk through the code changes in order to support these. So here in this file, we're adding these two port attributes and a port stat. The first one is a SAI port attribute RX frequency offset PPM. That has the type, a new type that I added in this PR. I'll go over that next. The second attribute is SAI port adder RX SNR, which again has its own type. And the third is a port stat, INFEC corrected bits, which, like I said, is the count of total bits. And this will be reported as a monotonically incrementing counter. Now, the types for the two port attributes are defined here. For example, for frequency offset, I define a structure which has a count of how many values exist and then a list of values. Then each value is a structure also which has the lane number and the PPM for that lane. This is similar to how, for example, I margin is currently reported today with SAI, where there's a list and each value in the list has values for that lane. For SNR, it's a similar representation where it's reported as a list with a count and a list of values, and each value has a lane associated with it and the SNR in which is an unsigned 16-bit integer, like I mentioned before. And this is in units of 1 over 256 dB. And that's pretty much the gist of it. The rest of the changes are supporting changes for adding these two different value types and some changes in order to pass the sanity checks. That's all I wanted to discuss. Let me open it up for questions now.
I think my only comment was that there was one of the units that was I think you'd said that you did it because it matched the CMIS spec and whatever, the 256th, it was the base unit.
Yes.
I think that at least my take would be that we should probably put this into the native format, but I think, just for consistency in the API, but whether others agree with that or not is something that can be discussed.
So by native format, did you mean as a
In its
floating
native
point?
unit, so that it would be in, a floating point DB or something like that, as opposed to 256th.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. As far as I know, I don't think we are able to do a floating point type here, but
I could be, that would be a reason not to do it. Okay, and that's fair.
yeah, but others can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we cannot do floating point.
I didn't think to look. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment.
Is on the same subject. Is the resolution 1/256 good enough to represent this?
We think it's good enough. Any hardware folks on the call can help me, but like I said, this is similar to how optics represent them, and we think that 1/256 should be good enough.
Yeah, maybe I can chime in. Hey, this is Qin from Meta. So I'm an optic engineer, and I think SNR resolution of 1/256 dB should be good enough for like most cases, or maybe all the cases. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Anyone else from the community has questions or suggestions about this PR? Okay, if not, please help review. I'm not sure which. I think we have quite a few hardware vendors here. Maybe you can, help review this.
So given the cutoff, it seems, is this week, and I don't hear any concerns around the PR, would it be possible to try and close it this week so that we meet the cutoff?
Yeah, I would suggest some of our vendors like maybe Broadcom or NVIDIA and some, Cisco. If you guys can, help review this and, give comments and approval. Yeah, sign off. That would be great. Yeah.
Could we please get acknowledgement from hardware vendors on this? No?
Maybe Jay Ravi Mabel can help.
Okay, Genwa, Sri Krishna, I'll have to go check with my architect team to understand this. I don't have enough background, but I'll do a check and update. Yeah, if it looks good, right?
Yeah,
I'll take
appreciate
it.
that.
Thanks. Thanks.
And maybe Marian Ahmed. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Genwa, I think in Broadcom, the PHY I don't understand this side very well. So there is other person, I don't know if he's there on the call. He's the one who usually helps to review this. So I'll make sure he reviews it.
Okay,
Yeah,
appreciate that.
Jamie's on the call.
Jamie's on the call? Oh yeah, Jamie's on the call. Jamie, would you be able to take a look?
Yeah, we reviewed this with Meta already. It should be
All
fine.
right, okay. So yeah, if you can take a look and approve the PR, that would be nice.
Someone will have to give instruction on how to do that.
You have to have an account and then you go in the review. We can help. Just ping me offline.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. Any last minute, discussions needed?
There is, I don't know if we are done with this topic. There is one pending topic related to a different PR. So I will wait until people close their question on this PR.
Yeah, I think we're done with this one. Yes.
Okay.
So you have something you want to present?
Now, we presented already last time. There is a couple of questions that we would like to actually clarify with Jay, and I think Camille also has one question on the PR. So Aparna, maybe you can share the PR and we can go through the questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Who will be presenting? Aparna? Okay, let me make you as a presenter so you can share screen. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, just give me a second.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. Can folks see my screen?
Yes. So basically, to conclude a bit the conversation or do a summary of the conversation that we have on this PR. So in this PR, we introduce a new functionality called path tracing midpoints. And for this functionality, we introduced two new attributes. One is called the path tracing interface ID, and the other one is the timestamp template. Based on the discussion, we agreed that that the interface ID will go under the SAI port attribute, and the open discussion was basically related to the timestamp template. And there was two proposals. One, it was already in this PR, is basically adding this directly under the SAI port as introduced here in this PR. And there was a different or a suggestion from Jay, basically to include these attributes under the TAM side. So Jay, just would like to clarify with you here, like I will also maybe remind again the requirement for this timestamp template, and you can advise on this and in order to update the PR. So basically, this attribute and the timestamp template defines which bits of the timestamp we're going to record by the path tracing midpoint, and each interface can be assigned only one template, but different interfaces in the same node will have different templates. So it's not going to be a single template inside the node that will be assigned to all of the different interfaces, but it's going to be different templates, and some interfaces will be assigned one, and other interfaces will be assigned the other. So that's a little bit of of summary of the discussion that we have on this PR. And basically, there are the two proposals, the one under the SAI port and the one under the TAM. And Jay, maybe if you can, advise a bit on what would be the benefit on doing this, let's say, under TAM and instead of doing it under the port directly, and some hints of how we should do that if we need to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Ahmed, first appreciate you being, open to suggestion. Appreciate that. So I think in this proposal, this is reasonably simple. What you have put, what it does, it also creates, some parallel mechanism. And today we have, for any kind of telemetry or monitoring, we went through a very, very long, it was almost a year-long PR discussion. We created pretty comprehensive infrastructure. So the advantage I see is that one is that the PT naturally belongs into the INT hierarchy, which is there in the TAM, right? So that's one. But that's, again, subjective to, liking or disliking. The other thing, if you see like the port, ATR, path tracing interface with there, you have typically we don't like doing this, that if the value is 0, it means the feature is disabled. Our concept of feature is driven by objects, right? If object has a presence, that feature has a presence. Typically we don't like this. So that's other inefficiency I saw in that proposal. So those are the reasons. And then the work-wise, my concern was that, if the changes are too big, then even I would have said that, maybe just keep it here. But I realized that changes are essentially 2-line changes there. Can you go to the comments which I gave? Scroll down.
It was common on the PR itself, directly on the.
Yeah, somewhere in the end, somewhere there.
I think you need to go to the PR itself. Yeah.
Out to the file chain. Go to the conversation. Yeah, and it was somewhere in the end, all the way in the end. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Keep on going down a little bit. I see only 1 and 2. Can you go down all the way? Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. Yeah. Okay. So basically, yeah. So you can ignore the comments. Just go from the number 1, number 2. Can you scroll a little bit down? I want to have the 3 and 4 as well. Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So essentially, what my suggestion is that in the TAM we have these INT types. This is an object which has a various INT attributes. And there is IOM, there is IFA, there is P4INT, etc. And naturally, we can just add one line here which says, path tracing. So this is the new INT type. Then the timestamp is essentially, now this one I was not clear, is timestamp format per port? Because in your current proposal, it's per port. My thinking was typically timestamp, you want to keep it on a per device or a per port.
No, we discussed it a little bit because that's why we have actually different templates, and the different templates because different ports might have different templates.
So even the timestamp bits which you pick can be different for a different port. I mean, logically, it does not make sense, right?
It really depends because you might have some ports on the node that are connected to different segments, and you need different precisions on those ports. So it's how to say, it's a per port actually configuration.
Okay. So yeah. So let me just not reason about that. Simply make an assumption it's per port. If it's per port, then we cannot add the timestamping in the INT attribute. INT attribute, this object is you can have multiple, but typically you want to keep them as low as possible, right? So then it also belongs to in the port, right? So essentially, your tracing timestamp type, what kind of timestamp need to be picked for a given INT, path tracing for a port. This goes in port. Then you have a port ID. There's also, so we have a device ID. Device ID is a global. And in the draft I have seen there is some mention of device ID too, but you want a port ID. So port ID also goes in the port, right? So essentially in this spec, all you do is you enable this INT type. That's also actually it's even less. It's a one-line change. And what it does that you create a TAM object with INT type path trace and then bind it to the port. So that gives you enable and disable feature. And also it gives you ability to support source and sync in the future. So your two attributes remain same. What are there available? Essentially, your proposal of making the value 0 and calling that feature is disabled now is reflected in the TAM object. If the object is present in the port, then the feature is enabled. Otherwise, it's disabled. And then you can add a valid only condition check in the timestamp type and also port ID if needed, that these fields are valid only for TAM object of type path trace.
Okay. So let me recap a bit my understanding just to make sure we are on the same page. So you think here that both attributes should come include the interface ID, because what I understood from one of the comments was basically to keep the interface ID under the port itself.
Correct. Yeah. So that I'm still agreeing with that. So interface ID goes in port. Even timestamp also goes in port where it is today.
Mm-hmm.
So you have two line changes, which is actually the gist of your PR. The only thing which comes in TAM is the type PD. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So basically, now I see. So we keep the two attributes. We introduce a new a new type for the int, and instead of having 0 for let's say for enabling disabling the feature, it will be just the int a new int type.
Yeah, it will be TAM object in the port. There is already an object binding, and if that object binding is present, then you know that whatever that object points. In your case, it will point to type PT. Then feature is enabled.
Okay. And why you would, just out of curiosity, because here we are introducing, let's say, extra check to why shouldn't we do it just with the interface ID 0 equal disable and other value equal enable?
Typically, we don't like that, and there are other folks who can comment on that as well. It's not that typically we enable with a Boolean if really needed, but that was a legacy style. But there is a precedence. So if you really want to enable, then we use Boolean to enable a feature, enable or disable.
Okay.
Object binding is which. So go ahead, Aparna.
So just a clarification, Jay. So if we want to, since it can be enabled on multiple ports, let's say if we want to enable it on port 1 and port 2, now we have a new TAM object of type PT, which is associated with both port 1 and port 2. But we want to disable it only on port 1. So, then what do we do? So we disassociate it from port 2, and then finally the TAM object gets deleted when there is no more TAM or there is no more PT on all the ports.
Let me try to understand. So initially you have feature enabled port P1 and P2, correct?
Right.
And in that
Yes.
case, you will do a binding of a TAM object with port 1 and P2, P1 and P2, correct? Now later on, you want to disable the feature on port P1. And in that case, essentially the P1 port attr TAM object will be set to null, right? You will just remove it from there. Ref count goes down. Does it get deleted? There's a ref count mechanism. It does not get deleted because there are other ports still referencing to it, right?
So, okay, so the ref counting is done by the
It's
SAI
done by
implementation, right?
SAI is right here. And I don't know, maybe SAI actually.
by having this enable and disable feature using the TAM object, we have we have that enable and disable not with a bit but with a TAM object, but then we have extra housekeeping for the ref counting.
That's
All the
yeah,
ports have been cleared.
right. It's not extra housekeeping. I mean, I don't have a very good understanding of ref counting, what all places are there. Maybe Ravi, you can help me there. But that's typically done for any object. If you have a SAI adapter implementation, you have to have a ref counting. That is not the only place you worry about. It's pervasive.
You mean there is already the infrastructure for this, and once we do it, we get this for free. We don't have to do the housekeeping for it.
Typically, that's what my understanding is, but also depends on the SAI adapter implementation, how you have done the implementation. I can't comment on that. But think about it. You already have switch objects, you have port objects, they all refer to each other. Right? There's no API so there's already a concept of ref counting.
Okay.
Right. I mean, there is no infrastructure as such. We will have to, they just wanted to clarify that that is the expectation that, there is ref counting to make sure that the object only gets deleted when all that object no longer use it.
Correct. So the TAM object, if you want to go ahead and issue a delete, I think it's done by the orc agent. I don't think it's done by SAI adapter, at least in my implementation.
Okay.
Right? So orc agent, once it figures out that all the other referencing to TAM object is finished, then issues, let's say, a remove API. With remove, it's going to also delete the associated memory.
So so those kind of things, I think.
Great, thank you. And another.
It's good to handle this in the orc agent where we have more, let's say, flexibility to handle all of these states.
Right.
But Jay, just to pitch in, right?
One more question. So we.
Sorry, Ravi. Just 1 second. Ravi was adding stuff.
Yeah. So Jay, what you said is correct, right? In today, SAI Redis library, there in the Sonic, there's some checks that's done. But end of the day, even SAI is supposed to do these checks. For example, what we talked about, if a TAM object has been bound to a port, and if that TAM object is getting deleted, the SAI adapter is supposed to return a SAI in use return code. The SAI adapter needs to say it's in code. So technically, to be speaking, SAI adapter needs to do this check.
Yeah, but SAI adapter typically don't maintain the ref counts.
Yeah, again, maybe depends on the
implementation. Yeah, that's what exactly I said, that how you are implemented, you can get around with it, or you can go a little old fashioned, go with ref counts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Ravi.
Good.
Okay. And one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
So right now, since we are using this 0 for disable and the other values 1 to 4095 for, so that range will still remain as 0 or 1 to 4095.
Correct. And there is an attribute called as a range, and you can use that to be strict about it.
Okay.
You can look at the ACL as an example.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, in summary, Ahmed, your current proposal stays. All you do is, instead of enabling, disabling with 0, you just enable, disable with a TAM object where the INT type is path trace. That's the only change.
Yes. I already have some how to sketch of how we do it. So just to recap with you, in order, like let's say the overall workflow, because you explained to me. So we're going to create, how to say, In order to enable this, I will use the create tam int function to create a new tam object. With the type path tracing, bind this to the port, use the two using the set port attributes, and then I set the two other parameters of the port attributes, the interface ID and the timestamp template, and that's it.
Correct. That's it. Yeah. And you can, if you want to be a little bit more, pedantic about it, you can add, valid only checks where the tam attribute is only path type, path trace.
Okay. Okay. And the other question, it's actually just a clarification. When I have more than one templates, I create two tam int options. No, actually, it's now we are not doing that.
No, now you don't have to do. It's very simple. You still create only one tam object. You don't want. Yeah, we typically don't like creating multiple tam object. It's a little heavy duty, right? So.
Yes. No. It's not needed anymore because the TTS is under the port directly now. Okay. Yeah. Good. Thanks.
So I can tell you under what cases typically more than one tam objects are created. So if let's say you have in a single device, you want to support multiple INT type, and it will never happen. But for example, then you don't want two different tam objects because they will have a different binding and different behavior. If you want to support INT as well as streaming telemetry, let's say, I think like what Jason is doing, right? They both need to exist in the same device. Then also you will create two different tam objects. You can create one also, but just to have a good separation, clean separation, then you just create two different tam objects.
Yeah. Okay. No,
so basically, whenever the tam objects have any attributes, that's when there will be a need to create multiple tam objects.
When the tam object has,
I mean, that's common.
Yeah. If there is no commonality between, let's say, INT and streaming telemetry, like your collector is not even same, none of the attributes are same, then you want to keep them separate. But otherwise, also just for cleanliness, you want to keep them separate.
Right. Right. Like, for example, for sync or source, if there are some attributes that need to be in the tam object, but you need a per port attribute, then obviously you need those many tam objects. The unique attributes per port should be in the tam objects.
No, that in that case, you don't want to define that attribute in tam. Then ideally, you should just define it in per port, like just the way we are doing right now. If you're any information which is not centralized and can be uniformly applied to all the ports, then it should not stay in tam. Then it should go in the object where its property lies, right? So like in this case, port.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
So Jay, I would appreciate, we will update the PR probably today, and would be good if you can have a look on after we push the changes, and if you are okay, you can approve them.
Yes, we'll do that.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Yeah, and Ravi for helping here. Anything else the community has?
Yeah, I would like to, I'm from Google. This is Manali. I would like to discuss a couple of PRs.
Sure, let me make you as a presenter. Okay, Manali, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So, do you see my
yes,
desktop?
I see you. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So this is the tunnel term table SAI tunnel.h definition. And these are the different types. And we noticed in our internal review at Google that it was flipped. So basically P2MP is multi-point entry match on source IP and dest IP plus mask. Right? And MP2MP, and so is the case for MP2P as well. It's multi-point to point. So source IP plus mask to dest IP. So when we correct the comments, we also have to fix the validation. So it's a that's a change. Anybody has any comments? This is clearly it was broken in the existing definitions.
Thank you. When was
Ravi,
this?
I,
Yeah.
I'm still looking, so sorry. Term MP to P, P to MP. So MP to P was actually P to MP. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
okay.
it looks like it was backwards since it was originally submitted.
Right. Okay.
But this is, to be clear, a breaking change, right? If anyone is using this anywhere, it's going to cause problems,
Basically,
or potentially.
if you had a bug and it went by, now it will show up.
Yeah.
But so question here. So tooling should have cribbed on this, right? So if somebody is using it, so either
I think must be nobody's using it is the short
yeah,
answer. But
that's
yeah, one of our internal reviewers was like, "Doesn't this look backwards to you?" And we said, "Oh, yeah, it does look backwards. We should probably fix that." So
Yeah, I
But
mean,
did you
we missed
see
it as well.
any compilation errors or any toolchain errors on this when you were trying to use with the old definition? I'm worried that this tool missing something, not catching.
no, there wasn't any because the spec was written, like I think just nobody was using it, and we weren't using it either at the time, right? This was just from a review.
I see. Okay. Do you mind verifying it that toolchain does catch it now that you have implementation?
So we do know that the enforcement of the valid only works because when we did our other change that Manali was working on previously, that is already merged, that changed something here. I forget what it added, the ability to do dest IP, I think,
This type
for for some of these. We know that broke things, so we do know that the validation does work.
Right. Okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. It slipped by.
And the other one I had was priority. So now that we are allowing dest IP mask and source IP mask, it's a ternary matching. We wanted to add priority for the tunnel table. And this is the attribute. And this is the change. The higher value of the priority would be higher priority. I'll add a comment. I just noticed that I've not added it, but
So I think for this one, we'd like some inputs from the ASIC folks to make sure that this is an okay change.
Yeah, agreed. Ravi, you might want to take a look too. Or Marian as well.
Yeah, I'll also take a look at it. Yes.
Yeah.
so I can tag you on the PR.
So Manali, can you explain
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
So this is a SAI. So we have a switch and a tunnel, which is essentially inheritance. But let's say we have a tunnel. So this is a tunnel table entry priority, right?
Yeah.
And where it's used
At the tunnel termination table.
Okay.
Yeah, when the decap.
And why you want to use? So what's the use case?
So we have a dest IP mask and source IP mask, and it's a ternary matching. So if there are conflicting, like multiple matches, we want to have a priority to figure out which one should be picked instead of just making it either of the matches. So priority breaks the tie, basically.
But isn't just it like a route lookup? LPM?
Is it LPM? So
I don't
that's
know.
what the
Tunnel
ASIC.
table, if the div, if it's a destination, I mean, routes are also using the mask, right? We don't add priority there. And we typically do a LPM kind of a lookup.
Depends on the table, right? So, okay, I was under the impression this was ternary. It was not longest prefix match, but it was ternary match. So if somebody, so if, yeah, if we could get a confirmation on that, then yeah, then that would be great.
No, I mean, your point is valid, that if it's a ternary, then if it's a TCAM kind of a table, tunnel term, then it's valid. You're right. Do we have in the tunnel table any such attribute? All right. Okay. Something to think about. All right. Okay.
Yeah, I think if the underlying ASIC is different, then this would be a default priority and it would work the same way. But if the underlying ASIC, it depends on that. But for the header file, I mean, again, this is something, that's why it's open for discussion.
Yeah, I
No
think
need.
the key is if the table is implemented as a TCAM, right, then these priorities are relevant. But if
Yeah,
it's a lookup, then you are
yeah,
saying that then don't
just use
configure,
the default.
just
Yeah,
use default 0.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. Okay. I got it. That makes sense.
So
Correct.
my only comment here is that at least the way that the attributes are specified, it's an IP and a mask, not an IP and a prefix, right? From the attributes we were just looking at, like if you look at the P2MP, it's a dest IP and a dest IP mask, not a dest IP prefix.
It's not a prefix mask, basically. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, nothing there, at least as far as I can see, specifies
Correct.
that this is a prefix,
Correct.
which implies a ternary match.
Correct.
If that's not the case, if the intent was it for it to be longest prefix, then we should change that as well.
That's right. That's right, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, you're right. Here we are always just using the IP, not it as a prefix. Correct. So inherently there was an assumption that this SAI tunnel is probably a ternary kind of table.
So I added the mask. Oh no, sorry, the mask was already there. Sorry.
No, mask was already there.
Yeah, the mask was
Mask
already
was already there. Right.
Yeah.
It's actually all sprinkled all over the place.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
I fixed
I think
validates.
yeah, I'm good with the change. Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate explaining it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else? Any other PRs? Okay, if not, then I'll give back 10, 12 minutes back to the community. Please be reminded that this header 1.13 is, it's closing. So yeah, next week. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey,
Yes.
Kanwar, just 1 second.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. I just want some guidance. If we have some features that are part of 2022 20 November release and that require some side changes, but those PR are not currently reviewed by the community, we still need to get those side changes merged before this cutoff date.
Yes. Yeah. So side changes kind of like on the lower layer implementation, right? So that support needs to be there. Whether your feature that depended on this is in or not, it's separate, right? You can, I mean, we have cases where the lower layer support is there, then you can take your time to roll in your feature. Yeah, and it's always ready for you whenever, you know.
Okay.
Makes
Okay.
sense? Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm?
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.